break up the overall procure-to-pay process into sub-processes?
Yeah, I would say that there's the front end of the process is primarily the procure process, right? Having
Mhm.
the procure process where you may have a requisition process where you may have somebody who's attempting to purchase a service or a product, making sure that that person is authorized and you're getting the best price, right? You're putting a bid out to purchase any products. You're getting the best price. You're working with legitimate vendors, and you have the proper approval to spend that money. So there's a requisition process that typically where an employee would ask the manager to make sure that they're allowed to buy the goods or the service. And then there's a purchasing process, typically where the larger organizations may have a purchasing department where the requisitions would come into this purchasing department, and there they may vet the vendor. They may try to negotiate the best price they can, discounts, long-term agreements, contracts. Mostly that stuff will be handled in the purchasing group. And once the decision is made to purchase the products, they can go out and issue the purchase order and commit the organization into the purchase of those goods and services. The next phase of it is really kind of in the finance realm of the space, I would say. It's making sure that you're receiving the goods or the service. You're now making sure that the pricing that you've committed to in the purchase agreements are all in agreement. The amount of goods that you agreed to purchase has also been received, and you're making sure that you're paying the vendor based on the contractual terms, in the proper timing and in the proper amounts, if it's currencies, or then you handle sales tax, service charges, shipping charges, or whatever other charges you may have. But making sure that it's being processed timely and the vendor is happy that you've made the payment on a timely fashion.
How do you exactly see the evolution of these processes over the last decade or so?
Yeah, I would say, there's been a lot of evolution in the space in the last 10 years, I would say. As I said, my career started 30 years ago, and I feel like maybe the first 20 years, a lot of it is very manual in a sense. In that, as I mentioned, most organizations start with very small finance groups, primarily making sure that the vendors get paid. So there's never been a lot of investment in that side of the house. And it's probably the first process that most organizations really build out to make sure that they have the right processes or legitimate small processes in place to make sure that vendors get paid, as well as employees, I should say. But I don't think when the company grows, I think the investments, the resources get to other areas, primarily sales, marketing, and there's less focus that goes back into the accounts payable to procure-to-pay process, because many people feel like it's been working for since we're beginning the company, so why we need to change that area. So I think there's probably a lack of focus in going back and reinvesting money in processes that the company feels may work, or invest in that area at this point. So I think the biggest area, I think, when I come on board is that the companies begin to grow. The accounts payable group is probably beginning to grow, but they also don't want to spend more resources in hiring more people. So it's an opportunity to really look and see what kind of processes what kind of systems or technologies may be available at that point. So I would say in the last 10 years, I would think that the OCR technology has been really helpful in that, where invoices would come in and get scanned, right, and be more electronic, right. I also think, in the past, people would mail invoices, right? There was a lot of paper flowing between organizations, and invoices would get lost in the mail. And I think now with the kind of, maybe prior to COVID, but around the COVID area, I think there was a more concentrated effort to do everything electronically, including sending invoices into customers. And then there's been the adoption of, if the invoices are electronic, how do we get them to scan? How do we store them? I remember organizations that come in and there's file cabinets full of invoices, and you're still writing checks, right? And you're mailing checks to customers, and the checks are attached to the old vendor invoices, and you got receipts attached to in their invoices. So I think in the last 10 years that's changed. I think receipts are being tracked in systems. I think the purchase orders are now all are being sent electronically, as in invoices are being sent electronically. And I see payments being sent electronically, either through ACHs or wires. So I think the adoption of less paper makes it more efficient, and requires, I think technology companies have kind of expanded that to include some of these newer technologies in order to make the procure-to-pay more efficient, more effective, and with better controls around it, and less risk for errors, lost mail, slower payments. People would say the check's in the mail. Now you can actually send payments electronically. You can prove it within a minute that you sent the payment. So I think any adoption in those areas, which have kind of happened in the last 10 to 15 years, has been really great for small organizations as they grow, and they don't have to grow their finance team to, and they can just do a certain investment in some of the technologies that they may find in the systems.